Look at verse 28. Second characteristic. We don't toot our own horn. The first one, we don't boast in our own successes. Second one, relating to biblical humility, is we don't boast in our own personal importance. Verse 28, you yourselves bear me witness that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent before him. John says, guys, don't forget, I'm not Jesus. I'm not the Christ. It's like the disciples are saying, John, don't sell yourself short. Have you forgotten the angel? Did you forget about the angel, John? Well, just in case you guys have forgotten about the angel, back in Luke chapter 1, an angel of the Lord spoke to John the Baptist's dad, Luke 1, verse 13 through 15 in there. It says, do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call him his name John, and you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth, for he will be, and here it is, get this, he will be great before the Lord. John's disciples are like, have you forgotten the angel? You're great. God through the angel said, you're going to be great. Come on, John, have you forgotten this? God said this. Your ministry is going to be amazing. It's going to restore families. It's going to revive rebellious people. It's going to reignite the focus of the entire nation of Israel towards the coming Messiah. John, you are the man. Don't forget that you're the man. And John, here quietly, I love this. It's like he pulls up the chairs and says, come here, boys, sit down. Let me help you. Look at verse 29. The one who has the bride is the bridegroom. The friend of the bridegroom who stands and hears him rejoices greatly at the bridegroom's voice. Therefore, this joy of mine is now complete. In John's day, it was customary for the friend of the bridegroom, we call that guy today the best man. He was the one who would make all the arrangements for the wedding. He was the one who would oversee things. He was kind of the project manager. He was the master of ceremonies for a time. Everybody had to listen to him and obey his instructions. His final job was to stand outside of the bridal chamber where the marriage would eventually be consummated and make sure that nobody went into the bride except for the bridegroom. That was his final role. He would guard the door. It was primarily symbolic, but that was nevertheless his job. So John says, for a while everybody's been listening to me. I've been the master of ceremonies. I've been the planner of the thing. And that's been my role. But I've been making preparations for, and in this illustration, in this text, the nation, the bride, to meet with the Messiah, the bridegroom. And now that I hear his voice, now that he's here, it is time for me to joyfully step aside. That's what John is telling his disciples. Which brings us to a third characteristic of biblical humility, which is also the hardest. Biblical humility does not cling to personal recognition. Verse 30, John says, he must increase, but I must decrease. John's purpose was not to achieve fame. John was not in the pursuit of recognition. His entire focus and purpose was to glorify Jesus Christ. He lived for the fame of Christ. He lived so that Jesus would increase. By the way, the phrase, I'm sure you know this, it literally means he must keep on increasing and I must keep on decreasing. You know what? The moon shines brightest in the darkness, but as soon as the sun starts to come up, the reflective light of the moon begins to diminish. It begins to diminish. It fades until it is no longer needed. And here's where John could easily start feeling hurt, injured, forgotten. Well, did everything I do mean nothing? You mean you're changing the way things are done? You mean I don't get to keep my position of prominence? He could be hurt. He could feel injured. He could feel forgotten or discarded. And of course, his disciples don't want to see their teacher overshadowed. Come on, John, you're the man. His disciples want John to put an end to this. Like, look, John, say something. Do something. Make that guy stop. Listen, if we drift away from God's priorities, let me change that. When we drift away from God's priorities, we always start thinking that we are more important than we really are. When we start drifting away from God's priorities, we start thinking that we're more important than what we really are. When we start evaluating everything based on what we like or what we dislike, we've lost our purpose. So the next time that you find yourself tempted to complain about anything, ask yourself, am I complaining about this because of the glory of Christ decreasing, or because I don't like it? That's the question. Isn't it interesting that the opposite of a humble Christian is one who loses sight of what he's supposed to be doing? Totally loses sight. It's like the preacher who's preaching on the second coming of Christ, and right in the middle of his sermon, Jesus appears in the clouds, and then he gets mad because he was interrupted. The preacher gets mad because he was interrupted. Okay, that didn't work. Okay. It's like the baker who keeps getting upset because people are eating his pastries. It's like the builder who gets upset because people keep buying his houses. That's nuts, right? Absolutely nuts. It's totally crazy. Why? Because that's the aim of his occupation. That's his job. A baker bakes, a builder builds, a preacher preaches. Christ, hopefully, probably not a preacher. Here's John's disciples whose job it is to introduce people to Jesus, and they're getting upset. Why? Because people are following Jesus. That is nuts. Pride does ridiculous things. Now I'm going to share something with you. I started my own list, and then I went out and got to looking and realized other people had better lists, so I started piling up lists, and pretty soon I had a giant list. And when I first thought about sharing this with anyone, I printed it out a couple of times and wadded it up and threw it against the wall because I don't like it. And since I had to endure it, you get to endure it. I want to share it with you. Just in case you think you have no problem with pride, just in case you think pride is only something others deal with, let me give you some things to think about, and you see if there's anything here that fits for you, because only you and the Lord know. Ready? Pride always makes me think that the sermon is for someone else. Pride makes me critique church based on what I got rather than what I gave. Pride makes me think of myself first and others second. Pride makes me look for my name on the list and my face in the picture. Pride always makes me compare myself with others, excusing my failures while condemning theirs. Pride makes me sensitive to how I look, how I feel, and defensive about what I do. Pride makes me expect special treatment, want to be in control, think my opinion is important, and always want to be right. Pride makes me impatient, resentful, and bitter. In pride, I speak with angry words, belittling words, harsh words, harmful words, defiling words, thoughtless words, self-aggrandizing words. My pride wants to dominate conversations, boast in myself, and be critical of others, and delight in arguments. Pride makes me pushy, nosy, gossipy, competitive, obsessive, compulsive, and anxious. Pride makes me want to be recognized and noticed. Pride feeds the me monster through my looks, my travels, my education, my ministry, my Bible knowledge, my cooking skills, my decorating skills, my social status, or it makes me jealous of yours. Pride makes me expect recognition and resentful when I am disrespected. Pride makes me discontent, restless, anxious, jealous, and selectively lazy. Pride makes me late for you, but gets mad when you are not early for me. Pride doesn't want to wait. It doesn't want to try for fear of failure. Pride makes me exaggerate my work, my opinion, my needs, my wants, my plans, while minimizing all of yours, and jealous if I can't. Pride makes me break the rules, bend the rules, and impose my own rules on others while resisting all of your rules. Pride makes me resistant, hesitant, and belligerent towards others' ideas because I want my own way. Pride makes me hold a grudge against you and wants to get even while forgetting my similar failures and then get angry when you get even with me. Pride always remembers wrongs, always thinks it deserves better, and always wants more. Pride makes me cover my sins while seeing others' faults first and clearest. Pride wants the best seat, takes the best parking space, and won't wait in line. My pride makes me need the best clothes, buy only the finest things for myself, but shop the bargain basement for others. Pride makes me always seek the best for myself and not care about the needs of others. Pride makes me not like my old car, always want a new car, and completely jealous of you when you get any car. Pride makes me either think of my house is not good enough for me or my house is better than yours. Pride makes me buy the biggest house possible and then say it's just investment without first asking where I have invested more, on earth or in heaven. Pride makes me buy things I can't afford, find reasons to not give, and do things I often regret. Pride makes me love money and hate sacrifice, love praise and hate criticism, love prosperity and hate adversity. Pride makes me pursue pleasures and avoid pain. Pride makes me worry about what I wear, how I look, and what others think. Pride makes me never quite content with my hair color, my skin color, my body weight, my physical condition, or my health. Pride makes me resentful when corrected, hurt when disappointed, impatient when hindered, greedy when given choices, critical when speaking of rivals, jealous when seeing others advance in any way, untruthful when confronted, and distant when slighted. Pride will make me exaggerate my accomplishments, possessions, and abilities while minimalizing my faults, my weaknesses, and my deficiencies. Pride makes me unthankful for others' sacrifices and service or gifts. Pride makes me irritated at others, short with those I feel superior towards, and flattering toward those that can help me in some way. Pride makes me driven with my agenda, hurried with others' needs, and impatient with life. Pride always makes me picky, finicky, touchy, choosy, nosy, and bossy. Pride makes me jealous of the strength of youth and disdainful of the weakness of the elderly and incapacitated. Pride makes me secretly rejoice in others' catastrophes and sullenly endure my own. Pride makes me think that I am vital and irreplaceable, and my life is so important that I will do all I can to save my life and not lose it. Pride makes me spiritually superficial, artificial, and critical. Pride makes me prejudiced, bigoted, and calloused. Pride makes me self-reliant, self-absorbed, self-deceived, self-confident, self-conscious, self-sufficient, self-satisfied, self-focused, self-centered, and self-driven. Pride makes me unreliable, unloving, unteachable, and uncompetitive. Pride makes me quick to speak and slow to hear, quick to anger and slow to forgive, quick to take and slow to give. Pride makes me think much about my life and little about my death. Pride makes me focus more on my skin than my heart, more on my hair than my mind, more on my clothes than on my being clothed with compassion and love, more focused on my car than on serving Christ, more on my house than on heaven. Is that enough? Listen to the words of the man that Jesus said was the greatest man who ever lived. He must increase, but I must decrease. He must increase, but I must decrease. Or he must keep on increasing, I must keep on decreasing. Ultimately, I can sum up this whole thing in one simple phrase. It's not about you. It's about Christ. What is? Everything. Everything. It's all about Him. James tells us that God gives more grace. Therefore it says God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the what? Humble. He goes on to say, humble yourselves before the Lord and He will exalt you. It's all about Christ. It's all about Christ. Father, I want to pause in this moment to I know this pride thing is a daily tormentor. So again and again, I ask you to forgive me and to restore me. Help me by your Spirit to identify any pocket of pride my attitude and my actions and my words. I want to be the man that you want me to be. I pray that you would minister your grace to all of us here this morning in the way that allows us to see within ourselves what you see within us. When we look at ourselves, we like to see good things and we don't like to acknowledge bad things. But you see with the fiery eyes of Revelation 1 everything in us. Help us to see the everything. And as we become increasingly aware of the holiness of our Savior, purge us and purify us. Help us to keep coming back to the simple truth that we exist for your glory and your grace is provided for our good. I thank you for your word and for your Son and